Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. And don't we have an amazing guest for you today? Somebody that will tell you all about somebody else that you may be familiar with here at the EdUp Experience. But before I get to that, I do want to remind you all to catch Elvin and I in Doha, Qatar, or Qatar, or Qatar. I don't know how you say it. I get a different answer every time I ask. We will be in Doha December 7th through 9th, recording live at the Qatar Foundation's educational conference called the World Innovation Summit for Education. We are so excited. We can barely contain ourselves. It's going to be so much fun. You can register online, wise-qatar.org. You can register online, or you can come in person. It'll be more fun if you come in person, even though there is a new variant called the Omicron, I think it's called, variant. You know what? Nothing's going to stop me from going to Doha. I know that. So check us out. Follow the podcast. Of course, rate us and review when you can on our website, theedupexperience.com. I am ranting. I am raving. Somebody who I'd like to rave about, and I will rave about right now, is our guest today. And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joe Bertolino, and he is the president at Southern Connecticut State University. President Joe, how are you?
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Good. I told you I would open with an applause.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I wish I got that at every meeting that I attended.
Well, you know what? It depends. Sometimes people get this. But my co-founder, Elvin Freitas, who you know apparently.
Sorry, I got a dog in the background.
You know what? This is life, Joe. Let it roll. That's what makes this podcast so good, is we just don't edit that stuff out. It is what it is. But you know Elvin, and he told me to take extra special care of you. Now, then he explained what that would mean, and I'm not going to go into details, but apparently you do know Elvin.
I have known Elvin for, well over 20 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So you know a thing or two you could tell us on this podcast.
I probably could, but I don't know if he has an attorney, and that would...
He doesn't have one. We don't have enough more money here at the EdUp Experience to afford an attorney for Elvin either.
Elvin was a graduate student at Teachers College, Columbia University, and he was looking for an internship. I was one of the individuals who interviewed him when I was director of student activities at Barnard College at Columbia. So that had to have been, I'm guessing, 97, 98 or so.
Wow. So you guys have known each other really for that long. That's amazing. He in fact, as you may have seen, just gave a presentation for Teachers College talking about the EdUp Experience and our growth. So everything kind of comes around full circle. And then here you are a couple weeks later, somebody that knows Elvin well, and he knows you well. And we want to know all about Southern Connecticut State University. Level set for us, Joe. Obviously, we know the Connecticut part and we know the southern part. Talk about the region of the state that you are in and what you guys do and how you do it.
Sure. Well, Southern is a public regional institution. We're part of the Connecticut State College and University system. We have 10,000 students, give or take, and about 3,000 of them live on campus. We are primarily a Connecticut-based institution, meaning that 95% of our students are from the state of Connecticut. About 45% of those students are first generation. We hail from the city of New Haven, which is a great little city. And having lived in both a rural environment and New York City, it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's where the suburbs meets the city, if you will. And so it's a great location, not too far from arts and culture and the beach. So that's not
quality.
Bad. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Gotta have the beach.
I'll also share with you that we are a highly diverse institution. About 46% of our students define themselves or consider themselves students of color. And we take a great deal of pride primarily in our social justice work. We are striving to be the social justice anti-racist university of the state of Connecticut. So a lot of good things happening there, and we're quite proud. We're quite proud.
So the state of Connecticut is an interesting state because of the news of the merger of the state institutions and how that process is going. How does that affect you guys? How's that process going? I'm not going to go into great detail, but you give it to me from your perspective.
Well, the system consists of 12 community colleges, 4 universities, and 1 online entity. So the merger is happening with the 12 community colleges, so it will become one very large community college, one of the largest in the country by the time all is said and done, with 12 distinct locations. That has, it doesn't really have a direct impact on us at Southern or at the other state universities, but indirectly, it impacts our relationship with the local community colleges that have been our feeder schools for the last several years. It's a heavy lift.
Positively or negatively, or a little both? Because I would think that you have your feeder schools are kind of your feeder schools, or at least you have some ownership over those and some relationship as they merge together, those 12 community colleges. There's going to be more definition around where those students are going, how you become a destination for those students. You're going to be one of others rather than being one of one, potentially with the colleges you had relationships with. How does that work?
You know, I think so, but it's too early to tell. It's hard to say. Right now, our relationship is with the 3 community colleges in our immediate area: Gateway, Housatonic, Norwalk. I expect that we'll maintain those relationships and they'll continue to remain strong, if for no other reason, because of region and location. So right now, each of the community colleges have been divided by regions, and those regions will report to the umbrella organization, which will be the statewide community college. So hard to say. I think that the complication is going to come in when the curriculum is finalized and when the system brings the curriculum and the other the other logistics to NECHI, which is our accrediting body for New England.
Yep.
There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot to unpack there. I think there's this push and pull between individual identity of a particular college and at the same time, what is that noise? Do we know what that noise is?
You hear that? I can't stop it. Hold on a second. Good thing this is being recorded and we can edit this out. Oh my God, that thing just kept going. Okay, so sorry about that. So I'm not gonna ask you to restart your answer. I'll edit it out, and so I'm gonna focus you on a new question. Okay?
That's fine. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Okay, this happens from time to time. This is why we record in advance. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Thanks for that explanation, Joe. Connecticut has been a model, or at least it's been referenced as a model for how state institutions can merge, what happens, but there's always consequences, and there's going to be a future, albeit maybe an uncertain one until all of those things like curriculum, as you said, work out. I go to what Southern's future looks like, and I looked at your presidential priorities for 2021 and beyond. And it's the beyond part that is so interesting to discuss because of what's happened over the last couple of years. It's had all of the presidential leaders, all of the leaders that we've interviewed here on the EdUp Experience, had everybody thinking about what that more immediate and midterm future looks like that may have been changed. What does preparing Southern for the future mean to you And what's most important to prepare for the future? I know that's kind of a double barrel question, but take it whatever way you want.
Well, first, Joe, I want to share that I'm very familiar with consolidations because prior to my stint at Southern, I was a president in the Vermont State College system, which after I left began a consolidation process with some of its institutions and is now continuing that. So the pluses and minuses of the consolidation process is something that is close to my experience, and that can be painful at times.
Yeah,
because really what you're talking about is how do you balance the current climate, the needs of an institution in the current climate, and the financial demands that an institution is facing with the identity of a particular institution,
right,
and the individuals who honor that identity and are part of that community.
Whether identity is an important identity is really important, right, to everybody, all the stakeholders. Absolutely.
And so I think it's interesting because I inherited a 10-year strategic plan when I started my position at Southern. Now, my team would be the first to tell you that when it comes to strategic plans, Joe is not a fan. Because more often than not, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money putting together these plans. They look nice, they sound great, and then they sit on a shelf.
Absolutely true.
Because they're just overwhelming, or you don't have the time or the personnel to actually implement them because you're too busy running the day-to-day.
100%.
That's my agree button.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So when I arrived at Southern, the strategic plan has 148 action items.
Yikes!
So my response.
Yeah, that's 147 more than you need.
That's probably true. So everyone got a little bit of something, and I understand the politics of that, and I understand wanting to accomplish a great deal. So I made a decision to steer the conversation toward a small set of priorities, allowing those action items and other areas of the strategic plan to evolve organically. So what I found in our latest accreditation visit was that we had accomplished most of those 148 items. And we did so because we were focused on larger priorities that were specifically focused on our mission, on our values, and were highly intentional. So all of these other things just happened organically.
Yep.
And so I wasn't surprised by that, but it certainly felt good. Now, as we move forward, particularly in light of COVID, I found myself asking the question, we don't know what's going to happen one semester to the next. We're now talking about another variant. Who knows what that's going to mean for the spring semester? And so for us to limit priorities to just a single year doesn't make very much sense to me. I also think that anyone who develops any type of strategic plan needs to understand that, one, it has to be fluid. It has to be a living document. And secondly, it has to be intentional and brief.
Yeah.
I'm like, give me 3 to 5 years. Actually, give me 3 years.
Yeah, 3. Agreed.
Give me 3 years. I already know what the priorities are going to be for the next 3 years. If nothing else, COVID has defined that for us, whether we like it or not. The individuals don't have faith in higher education. Folks are questioning the value of a degree, and whether or not a degree is going to bring them to where they want and need to be. Secondly, folks are questioning the finances. No one wants to take a student loan, given how many people they now see having to pay a large amount of dollars every month because they took on student loans. So they're seeing, in some cases, their siblings or even their parents still paying off student loans. So they are less inclined to want to take those loans. And I think third, the community in general is really questioning whether or not what we say we're going to do is what we actually do. For example, we talk about
higher education institutions.
Yes.
As an industry, you mean?
Yes. And so, for example, at Southern, we aspire to be a social justice university. Okay, that's great. What are you doing? This generation of students wants to see action. They don't just want to hear the rhetoric.
I love that.
And so I think as a result, we are being challenged more with regard to everything that we do. Students are asking questions. They should be asking questions, and they're asking good questions. I'll also add that we need to acknowledge that the demographics are not in our favor, particularly if you're in the Northeast.
Yep, not for another 10 years or so, right?
And that's right. And so all of those things combined, anyone who would take a good hard look at a business model would know that 25 to 30 institutions in the state of Connecticut may not be sustainable.
It's actually really incredible when you think about that scale. And I do want to zero in on one thing that you said, because I'm going to come back to it after I give you this set of questions. But you said what I would like to say is the mic drop moment of this episode. Students today want to hear action, not rhetoric. That is a foundational principle in how you communicate with today's students, in my opinion, right? If you're always thinking about that students want to see action, it's a lot easier to come up with those priorities and those plans because they're tactical, right? You have to have some outcome that you can communicate. And I go back to the value, and I'll go back to the value question for you. It's been different. Every person I talk to, every presidential leader, and there's been 120 or so at this point, answers this question a little differently. Why? What is the value of higher education today, and why is the public really questioning it? What is it? Is it the debt load? Is it the skills to job mapping? Is it the outcomes? Is it something else? What do you think is right? Is it parents that drive that? Is it our traditional system of going, oh, my son Johnny's going to Princeton. Where's your son going? Oh, he's going over here to this institution. Oh, this prestige thing that we've built into the fabric of American tradition, blah, blah, blah. What do you think?
Yes.
Amazing.
All of the above, I think, has impacted. First of all, we need to acknowledge the fact that the model that is currently used in higher education is an outdated model. It was a model that was created 200 years ago plus, and doesn't necessarily meet the needs of students today. I also think it depends on the type of institution you're talking about. Okay.
True.
So everything that you said, I can jokingly but seriously say yes to in some way, shape, or form. But because I think everything is impacting students' views of higher education, not the least of which is the ability to get information in a nanosecond, whether that information is true or false.
Well said.
And I will also share with you that, and this is my opinion, there's a great, years ago, I don't know if you're familiar with the, Charlie Sheen was in it. The Three Men, or I can't remember what that show was called. It's escaping me.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's yeah, I know it. I can't think of his name.
He and his brother and his nephew Jake.
Right. Yeah.
And Jake is sitting on the couch with, and he's a small boy, and he's with this little girl, and the two of them are sitting there on their devices, and Jake types, the little girl laughs. Little girl types, Jake laughs. And Uncle Charlie walks by and he says, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "We're talking." And yet all of that was being done on their devices while they were sitting in front of each other.
2.5 Men. That was the name of the show.
2.5 Men. Yeah. So that is, I think that illustrates the experiences of our students, this generation of students. And the result of that, on the one hand, we have students that can get a lot of information and that are tech savvy, and that's wonderful. However, the flip side to that, in my view, is that students, I think, struggle more in building relationships
with other people.
Yeah. With social interactions face to face. And so, I mean, this is a tangent from the question you asked, but for me, it is critical to answering the question, what is the value of higher education? And the value of higher education, besides the disciplines, besides the skill sets, really, I think, has to do with social interaction and being engaged in and with your community. And so building healthy relationships matters. Employers tell us time and time again that, and Forbes always puts out a list, and it's not about a particular major. It's always about the ability to communicate, the ability to work together, the ability to think critically, et cetera, et cetera. They're looking for individuals who are willing to learn, who will learn quickly, and who will interact with others and move the ball forward in a fast-changing environment.
True. And I wonder, does that cause you to go back with your academic team and say, we need to really look at the curriculum. We need to make sure that it's facilitating relationship development.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think
And
it
for the
does.
future, right?
Yes, absolutely. But if I'm a parent and I'm sitting in the audience trying to pick a college or university for my child or my student, I want to know if my son or daughter or student is going to get a job.
Absolutely.
Whether we as purists, because there are those in higher education who are purists, knowledge for knowledge's sake, that sounds wonderful. And I don't disagree with that. However, there has to be a practical application to one's education and one's degree. If we're going to make an investment, someone wants to know, is my child going to be able to leave my house? Please tell me they're not coming back to live in my basement.
Yeah.
Okay, I joke with parents about that all the time, but there's truth to that. So how do you, on the one hand, prepare students to think, to learn, to relate, to connect, to work in community? And at the same time, how do you make a student marketable so that when they graduate, they can go into an employment market successfully? And third, how do those two things combine prepare a student for a long-term career that is going to be in a constant state of change? My father worked for the same company for his entire life.
Yeah, that's rare these days. That doesn't happen too often anymore.
Now, I have worked for 7 different colleges and universities.
Mm-hmm.
This generation, the millennial generation, will have just as many, if not more, job changes over the course of their careers. And this current generation, that will probably move even faster. And so helping students to navigate change, we've heard the term pivot quite a bit. Yep. during COVID. I think helping students to navigate change is pretty critical. I teach a leadership class. I'm going to give you the whole leadership class right now. You don't have to pay me for it at all.
All right, it's about time.
Here you go. 3 credits. Leadership is all about relationships, period. It's about the relationships we have. It's about the relationships we want. It's about the relationships we foster, about the relationships we navigate, about the relationships we want to bring to a close, the relationships we want to avoid. In my view, when I talk to my students in my fundamentals of leadership class, that's how I start my class off. I want them to know that everything I do as a university president has very little to do with everything we've just talked about.
Yeah.
What I do impacts all of those things. But what I do is I form relationships and I deal with people.
It's truth. That is so true. Because, and we talk about this all the time here on the podcast, you talk about curriculum changes, you look at what's going to be needed in the future, and what's needed in the future is our ability to put our phone down and talk to people in person and do it in a way that separates us. And I say this, very technically here, but it separates us from the machines, right? There's going to be a lot of automated jobs, a lot of technology. What's the thing that will differentiate humans from the machines? And that's our ability to have relationships and lead and do all of these things. Speaking of which, This is the point of the episode when we like to find out more about our guest. And so, Joe, I'm going to ask you a question kind of unrelated to education. We'll see how unrelated or if you make it related. Are you ready?
Sure.
For no money, Joe. No money here, Joe. Tell me what song would be playing at Southern each time you walk on stage, each time you walk into a room for a meeting. Your entrance music, a la WWF wrestling. What's that song that would play that defines you, Joe?
Oh my goodness gracious! It's Go the Distance from the Disney movie Hercules.
Nice. And in fact, I just watched that a month ago or so with my kids. It's that great song. Why Go the Distance?
I think because I see that as my responsibility. It's my job to roll up my sleeves and just move forward and kind of face the challenges and the barriers head on, so that I can, I guess, clear a path for those at my institution and others that I am responsible for, if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense why you are university president, because you want to blaze a trail and create successful students. Also, sometimes it's your responsibility to go the distance when it's nobody else's responsibility, because especially during COVID, we've seen that with presidential leadership. You've had to continue to press on health related concerns. There's always been health concerns, but for students, but not to the level of testing and distancing and monitoring and skip tracing and all this stuff. And then on top of that, add in the regular job that you're supposed to do. Oh, by the way, you're now a mental health counselor for your staff, because your staff is going absolutely bonkers and crazy because of the health concerns. It's a lot of weight on presidential shoulders. How have you weathered that storm? How have you stayed healthy and sane, or are you insane at this point? Which is fine if you want to admit that here at the EdUp Experience. And in fact, I always say, if you want to be a VP, senior VP, president in a higher ed institution during COVID, you have to be somewhat crazy. But what's kept you going the distance? What keeps you going, and how do you do it so that you're not losing your mind and you do it in a healthy way?
Students, students, and students. I love and believe in what we do for students.
Access granted.
Especially for students who face multiple challenges and may not otherwise have an opportunity.
And you're dealing with many of those, right? First gen, students of color, lower economic background. We've referenced this many times on the podcast. You're a fender bender away or a light bill away sometimes from going, oh God, I just can't do school anymore. I need to take a break.
That's right.
That is the magic of being a leader in higher ed, is to bridge that gap somehow. The
vast majority of our students work, and I'm a social worker by training, so I think understanding and being empathetic to the needs of our students is for me, it's the Red Bull, if you will, that keeps me going. I'll share with you that my assistant Charmaine in my office, she will see when I am visibly upset or frustrated, and she'll stop me and say, I need you to leave the building and go over to the student center, because I know you'll interact with some students, and when you come back, you'll be in a great mood.
That's
And that's
good.
true. She's right every time. I think the personal and professional relationships, and mentoring that I've been able to engage in for the last 30 years of my career, I'm probably in touch with about 100 different students from 7 different institutions, Elvin being one of them.
Hmm.
That's that's what keeps me going. Now, am I a little bit crazy? Absolutely.
Oh my god!
And I think that I have the gray hair and the waistline to show for my 10 years as a college and university president. It does take its toll. I think it's exhausting. If I didn't have a spouse who supported me, he also happens to be in higher education, then I don't know where I would be,
Yeah,
because
because the job is always more than
yeah.
it says, right? And so if you don't have I feel the same way about my wife, and I don't know if you know, but I work for Claremont Lincoln University. I'm the chief operating officer. Same thing. It's like, if some days I'm like, I got to work, and if you can't have a supportive spouse and you can't do that work, then you can't do the job, and it creates a tough situation. So that support at home is definitely, we don't talk enough about that as a leader, what it takes to get through the day sometimes. And I would imagine your wife also does she get it on the other side, where you come home and you're like, oh God, I had one of these
Well,
days.
I'm
And
gonna
she's telling you the same thing.
yeah, I'm gonna correct you though, because she is a he.
Oh, okay, great. Didn't know.
And his name is Dr. Bill Leopold. He's the chief enrollment officer at Rutgers in Newark, and we have been together for 28 years.
Wow.
So
Congratulations.
thank you. I think because he is in higher education, um, we're both consumed by the work that we do, especially again, he's in enrollment. So as you can imagine, during these particular challenging times, that can be difficult. So
Do
we're
you give him
able
all the secrets? Does he give you all the secrets? You give him all the enrollment secrets?
he, I try to steal them from him. But I'll also say that on a sense of humor certainly helps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to. There are 3 things that I try to do every day. I think I am a person of faith, so I believe in prayer or reflection or meditation, and taking stock in what one has. I think secondly, I I try to reach out to at least one friend or family member or former student daily,
A
and
lifeline call like that.
yeah, I just to touch base and say hello. And third, I think if there's an opportunity to just find some humor in the day, all of those things help.
We ask our guests the same 2 final questions of every episode. I'm going to ask you the same 2 today. Number, we talked about the second one a little bit, but I'm going to ask you to give me your crystal ball. So get it ready and warm it up, the crystal ball. But first, tell me what I missed. What didn't I ask you about Southern? Maybe something you were hoping to talk about today that that I didn't ask you, or you didn't get in. Think of it as your plug section. Anything you got going on at the university that you want to mention. Anything that you think makes Southern special. I'm just giving you anything you want to talk about, a bunch of topics. And then secondly to that, what do you see as the future of higher education? I ask that really slowly because I try to be, ominous with it. But yeah, what do you see as the future of higher ed?
Well, let me talk a little bit more about Southern. I love Southern. I really do. It's become a home for Bill and I, and the city of New Haven is really a great little city. And so I think just our location and the community we serve, um, I think speaks to my values and the values of my team in the institution. And I don't take any of that lightly. Yale is the other institution in the city of New Haven. And
Never heard of them.
and
I'd go to Southern if it were me.
Thank you. I have to say that Peter Salovey, who's the president there, has been very, very supportive of Southern and the work that we do. But when you drive out the parking lot of Southern, if you make a right, you're in one part of town, and if you make a left, you're in a different part of town. And that's important, that our responsibility to the community as members of the community in trying to provide access to students is beyond critical on so many levels. And I do have to say that while there are a whole bunch of programs that are amazing at Southern, the two that I'm going to give a shout out to are the nursing program, because my mother was a nurse, and
never been more critical than they are today, nurses.
And a lot of Southern grads were at the front lines and have been at the front lines, and we have 100% pass rate on the nursing exam first time out. So
congratulations, that's incredible.
Really, really good about that program. And as a social worker, I take pride in being one of the few institutions in the country. I think we're one of 11 that offers the bachelor's, the master's, and the doctorate in social work. And these days, given mental health issues and the struggles that individuals are having and the work that lies ahead in managing mental health, I think we're preparing a new generation of professionals to fill that gap and to serve that need. And finally, I'll say I am most proud of our work centered around social justice and anti-racism. I think that Southern is very hard work. It's painful work. It requires us to engage in a lot of self-reflection and really kind of acknowledge where we have fallen short. And as I shared with you earlier, Joe, students don't want to just hear about it. They want to know, what are you doing? What are the actions that you are taking to move us in this direction? And so we're engaged in that hard work. And my hope is that at some point, when someone mentions Southern in Connecticut, they'll say, oh, that's that institution that's focused on social justice. So that's my vision or my goal for the institution longer term. And to answer your other question, what does higher education look like in the future? Who knows?
Crystal ball.
You know, I a few years ago, we all sat in meetings and we heard about MOOCs, and that was going to be the wave of the future. And then all of a sudden we stopped talking about MOOCs. I do think that what COVID has done is that it has reaffirmed the importance of two things. One, the value of an on-the-ground education.
Yep, I agree.
That folks who thought that the wave of the future is everything online, now that folks have spent virtually, well, virtually 2 years online, almost, uh, they, they're exhausted, and they want to be in the same room with other human beings, engaging in some type of conversation, some type of interaction.
And COVID has made them realize that that's what they want in
That's
a
right.
more clear way.
But the second thing that I think it has done is that it has also really shed light on the importance of a flexible curriculum. So I expect that over the course of the next several years, in the short term, the 3 to 5 years, we're going to see a growth in hybrid programs. We're going to see growth in students coming to campus for some of their education, perhaps even living on campus while taking courses online, or maximum flexibility, whatever that may be, that allows students to work, that allows students to have other experiences, and that allows students to get their education in whatever way they need or want it, if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
I think that's what we will see. And then I think if institutions are smart, you will continue to see a growth in partnerships between institutions and employers that allow for students to have a more robust, hands-on, experiential opportunity than they may have now. The elite institutions are going to always be the elite institutions. And the success of elite institutions, yes, there's the curriculum piece, but most, this is my opinion, most of what individual students perhaps get out of the more elite institutions are actually the networking and the connections. That isn't necessarily the case for institutions like Southern, and so we have to work harder in order to build those experiences. And so my crystal ball says flexibility in curriculum, and expanded opportunities with partnerships, and balancing social media with healthy relationships.
Boy, I don't know how we find that balance. Whoever could figure that calculation out is going to be one rich person. Social media and relationships, that's what it is all about in our lives right now. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Crystal Ball, Dr. Joe Bertolino. If he's wrong, you can find him in New Haven, Connecticut at Southern Connecticut State University. President Joe, has been an honor to have you here on the EdUp Experience podcast. Everything that you've said has resonated well with me. And we did not get to talk enough about Elvin and all the horrific stories that you promised to tell me, but we'll do that on another episode of the EdUp Experience. No, keep telling me. What were you going to say? I want to know.
What's that?
What were you going to say? I want to know what you're going to tell me about Elvin.
When Elvin came to interview as for a graduate assistantship, within his interview, he said, well, you know, Joe, I mean, I do this and I do this and I do this. It's all about my Elvinness.
Whoa.
And I never forgot that. Yes, this young man just came in and talked about his Elvinness.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he should be hired. I regret to inform you that I wasn't the person that hired him, but somebody else did. And
Somebody did latch on to his elvenness.
someone latched on to his elvenness, and I have been privileged to experience Elvin and his elvenness for the last 25 years, and it's been a joy. I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of him, and he's a good friend.
Well, this story has armed me with everything I need to give Elvin a hard time for the next 20 years, Joe. So I really appreciate you passing it forward. Well, there you have it. A great story about our producer, Elvin Freitas, and our amazing guest today, Dr. Joe Bertolino, Southern Connecticut State University president. And this has been another episode of the EdUp Experience. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.